Let's talk about the archetypes of the Anima and the Animus. Now, the terms Anima and Animus are used to describe effectively the opposite gender archetype of the gender that you are that kind of balances out different personality traits. So Anima and Animus, they both come from the Latin terms, and anima was originally used to describe things like breath, soul, spirit, and vital force, and animus was used to describe courage, desire, rationality, life, and mind. So in this case, anima is feminine and animus is masculine. So anima being female and animus being male. These are opposing gender archetypes that are within each of us thanks to the collective unconscious. The self that you are would be the persona, and based on your gender, you'd have an opposing anima or animus in touch with the persona. So the idea of like guys having a feminine side and women having a masculine side, right? So the anima slash animus is created by the psyche as a counterbalance to the gender role that you are born into. So effectively, if you are male, the your observations and influence vis-a-vis the collective unconscious of the females around you in your life tend to kind of balance you out. So males have an anima within them that helps to regulate emotionality, and females have an animus within them that helps regulate rational thinking. They serve to identify and lean behaviors towards certain roles, and I don't want to use this term too seriously, but more or less stereotypes, right? So like typical behaviors that nowadays it's not so much, but you got to think about back in the day with Jung and Freud and all that, the the mores and the gender roles between male and female. So the first input of our opposite gender archetype comes from the opposing gender parent or role model. So like me, right? I have my mom, my grandma, my aunts, right? So the anima that's within me, because I'm male, therefore I have a counterbalancing anima, was influenced by the collective unconscious, my mother, my grandmother, and my aunts, and you could even arguably say any like female caregivers that I had, or even like female teachers. The opposite would be for someone who's born female, and their animus would be kind of influenced and formed by their father, their uncles, any male role models or caregivers. So, in a magical context, you've got to think about this as being able to activate the balanced energies within yourself in order to kind of be more of a full person that is balanced. You can have somebody who is over, and we're just going to kind of throw gender out here, regardless of what you are born into or what you identify as, stuff like that. But you got to think counterbalancing. So we're looking at two different weights here. So we're looking at the idea of some traits being described as masculine, and some traits being identified as feminine, right? So you can have somebody who's over reliant on rational thinking and doesn't touch their emotions much. Then you would say that their masculine side is very strong, and they need to balance that out by integrating and working with the feminine side of them that is their anima, right? So they can lower the rational thinking ish and bring in that emotional thinking, or switch it around. You could have somebody that relies too much on emotional thinking and doesn't do a lot of rational thinking, and so they need to work more with the side of them that is connected to the animus, therefore bringing in more rational thinking. So Jung also described when one's anima or animus is either integrated or displaced. So an integrated animus for someone who is feminine and then they have to work with their animus, right? They when it's integrated properly, they demonstrate good rational and logical ability, the ability for clear non-attached thought, the ability to construct by sustained effort and application, basically following step-by-step formats, more of the less flowy stuff and more structured stuff, basically. Um, Having a strong center, good external strength in the persona, basically being able to stand strong with yourself. Um, the bridge to knowledge and creative thought, so you're able to bridge that gap between logic and step-by-step stuff, and just creative and free flow thinking. So you got to think masculine is more rational and step by step, feminine is more um, creative, right? So if you're able to balance those out, and then also being able to problem solve rather than just react. Okay, so the displaced animus would be when someone displays know-it-all behavior, they bully, um, examples of sadism, being controlling, being overly loud, or the inability to effectively and meaningfully relate with someone. So you can think of like the stereotypical like macho dude or an angry person, or this is the internet. Let's think nice guys, right? So an integrated anima on the flip side is someone who has the ability to access creative inspiration. They have a strong center and contained inner life. So in here, you're mentally balanced. You're not over emotional. You're capable of empathy and sympathizing with others. You can make value judgments beyond the realm of pure rationality. So not just does 1 plus 1 equal 2, but how does this affect me on an emotional level, right? Basically access to and being able to honor your feelings and generally being in a happy state. So really having balanced emotions. Displaced anima, on the other hand, is someone who lacks creativity. They can be moody. They can be bitchy, for lack of a better term. They have poor relatedness. Behavior in relationships is designed to isolate the person from others. They could be masochistic, they could be greedy or grasping, and they could be self centered. So, when you balance your masculine side with your feminine side, so I already talked about this, but depending on what gender roles you kind of are born into more, then you need to look at the opposite of those and make sure that you are balancing both out. Because it is important that if you are a rational thinker to kind of go with your gut sometimes and don't just always rely on does this make sense, well, how does it feel, and vice versa. I mean, I think that everybody can relate to either being too masculine or too feminine. Like, I tend to think that I'm way too rational thinking, you know, and just because I may feel a certain way about something, I tend to go with the math rather than the emotions. So, I kind of need to work with my anima a bit more. So, you know, the main idea is balancing out both sides of yourself so you're not just too heavy on one part of the scale, because it is bad if somebody just overly relies on their emotions, let's say, and they don't think things through. Well, then it can also be very detrimental to only rely on your emotions rather than logical and step-by-step thought. There is a time and place for both, and being able to realize when to use either of them is very important. You could be way too logical and not be creative at all, and you could be way too creative and not logical at all. There are situations where people can just be way too emotionally heavy, which kind of drags themselves down. And there are people that literally just keep their emotions locked away, and that leads to a lot of psychological discomfort and such. So I'm going to step more into in the next video about why it is important to integrate these different archetypes that I'm talking about, because we all have these different influences that are within us, and why talk about them? Well, the main idea is that we kind of have to work with these forces that are coming at us from the collective unconscious and influenced from or by those around us, and we have to balance that in a process called self-individuation. So look for that on my next video in this series on archetypes, and you guys can connect with me on all my social media and whatnot, and kind of let me know what your thoughts are or experience with balancing your male side or your feminine side, or the rationality versus emotionality and all that stuff. Let me know what you think. Good hunting. Thanks for watching my video. So if you want to check out my playlists, I have, among others, the Simon Necronomicon, the Tree of Life, General Magic, Tulpamancy, a playlist on my books, the elements, stones, the theories that govern magic, and the gods and goddesses of Mesopotamia. If you want to check out my books on Amazon, I have Creating Consciousness, Magical Mechanics, Magical Theater, Handy Sigil Magic, Magical Movement, which is an update and expansion upon Handy Sigil Magic, Magical Mastery, which is a combination masterwork of Magical Theater and Magical Mechanics, and The Guide to the Spheres and Beyond. You can also find me on Facebook at Magickology YT. You can email me at priestofthenecro@gmail.com, and you can even check out my Instagram, which is Magickology. And good hunting.